welcome back. We had a couple minutes between this episode and the previous one, and in that time, there were a couple more pieces of ambient dialogue that implied that maybe our ancient ancestors knew how to control these rivers. And I know that if this was my first time playing the game, I would have immediately assumed that meant all of the rivers were artificial. That may or may not be true. Who can say? But that's not something that they've brought up in the slightest. They are perfectly happy to just think that maybe at some point we could have diverted them. That kind of ambient dialogue is fine. It's fun. But it's time for us to land and see what sort of place ancient statues were carved on. And again, this is one of those things where the contexts don't really line up. We were just doing a completely different context that was way, way back in prehistory, long before the Empire. And now we're here, which is also pre-Empire, but it's a completely different group of people as far as we know. It's certainly a completely different focus. There's no,
Sometimes when you find a place, you find it overflowing with humanity, with life, with joy, with family, with struggle. Flames that burn so brightly, they can still be seen as dancing shadows. Hundreds, thousands of years later. And then other places are not like that.
Pretty good voices. So, as I was saying, there's nothing really compelling me to explore this moon. If we had been pushed to explore this moon when we were still interested in the ancient statues, that would have made sense, because we would be tracking down where those statues came from and who created the statues. But we were never really pushed to try and figure that out. There's no reason to care about where the statues were created. There were reasons to care about what the statues meant, or maybe how they got to the places they got to, or maybe, if they were useful in any way, or if there were laws about them or belief systems about them. But just going to where the rock was quarried, it doesn't really have any inherent value, which is why at that time I said, no, we're done with this part. We're going to go off and do a different context. But if the context had been designed to flow together a little bit better, then I could have been led back and forth pretty well, and it would have been a continuous flow of story where me tracking down things and trying to figure out what the next step was. Well, given that there are tracks, it wasn't one guy. Not just yet. What we're going to do first is pop off and make another backup save. Hooray! Episode 26, maybe. When you're doing an information gathering game like this, one of the things you always have to keep your eye on is whether or not the player cares about the next step. And there are a lot of ways to make the player care about the next step. You can play up the importance of that step as an intellectual puzzle. You can make people in the game world care about that step so that the player cares about that step. You can make it have a time pressure, because even if I didn't care about this moon, if I knew that it was going to be raided or was going to fall into an ocean or something, that would be a reason for me to go there, or a reason to care. You could even have me just get lost and show up there. All of these are perfectly valid approaches. But this game doesn't really do any of them. Oh, that makes more sense. That was cute. I like that. And I don't know whether it doesn't do them because of just a flaw in the writing, or whether it's because they wrote all of those connections and the context engine is just not surfacing them properly. So this is like the Emperor without the part here. So that would probably be law. What do you think? Robots' law is deep or fair? Try fair. It's hard to believe that they would order people to build giant statues. It doesn't seem terribly useful. The Steel Empire. Why did you name it that? The robots are, well. So we've dug back to before the Empire, and we started to find that robots predated the Empire. We already know that during the reign of the Empire, the only robotic elements that we discovered that were created at that time are really primitive and crap. And that makes a lot of sense because the technology had faded. But what we don't understand yet is how the pre-Empire era thought about robots. Because if the robots are made of people, what did the pre-Empire era think about them? Why do the robots have limiters inside of them and their minds are all screwed up? Why did they have statues of gods if they were capable of building robots out of people? If there's no such thing as an afterlife, why do you need a god? Lots of possibilities here. So from blah, 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 from work, blah, life. Comes or breathes. I think that's more like breathes. So from metal comes parents. From metal, this is not breathes after all. From metal comes parents. From danger comes metal. From danger come. Wait, this is danger, danger? From parent comes parent? That doesn't make sense. It must be metal comes metal. From work comes. Well, that's really interesting. The history of this universe is a fascinating one from the perspective of someone who's just, reading up on the universe. The weakness of it being presented as a game is that we don't have a strong enough connection to any of the progressions of this historical society. There are a lot of ways to give us better connections to the ancient life. We could make the ancient history represent our own personal struggles. We could have various characters that are deeply invested in the various phases of history. There are lots of ways we could have humanized this ancient set of cultures, and that in that way we could make it super distinct when we're talking about Empire era versus pre-Empire era. We could have tried to have people who are really excited about one or the other. And really helped us get a handle on it by talking us through it. The robot doesn't give a shit, so it's hard for us to really get a feel that these are exciting things to uncover. At least I have feet.
The wind died as we entered the tunnel.
Oh, look, a tunnel. How cute.
The air was ice cold and smelled of rust.
This is a pretty fun area. We don't have very many tunnels in this game. It's fun to see new kinds of locations in any sort of game.
Then we came out into a wide open space. Through all the murky dark, I could make out shapes, clinging like spiders to the rock.
Yeah, you think so? Why can't I move? You plan to give me control? That was a strange delay. So the robot, once again, doesn't like it here. The last time the robot didn't like it somewhere, it was because that was the place where the robots had been being built. The people had been being processed into robots. Now, I'm not a big fan of the architecture in this particular location because I didn't like the idea that we would have the same sort of oh, I think I might have missed something important there. I'll look back at it before I upload it. It did, though. You forgot everything. I just don't like that they all have the same sort of feel to them. Now, these are obviously not mud brick homes. They're aggressively non-mud brick, but they have the same shapes, the same shape language as the mud brick homes. And I just don't really appreciate that because it lessens the distinction between the two eras. So we're being told to track down more telescopes. We already have 3, and he's saying that we need at least 3. So clearly we were supposed to go here first before we found the 3rd telescope. That's okay, though. I don't know why we would call it a turret. Maybe that word has a meaning I'm not familiar with. So this place is in a much worse shape than the Eye of the Serpent. It could be that it's older, or it could be that the environment is just rougher on it. But in this case, it's actually been sabotaged or salvaged. One of the things we've noticed is that the robots don't seem to leave inscriptions. People seem to leave inscriptions. By which I mean fleshy people. Nice. All right. So we found out how to do the rotary puzzle. Good. You stay right there. I have things I want to explore without you. Oh, certainly. Never rash, ever. There's still like a light dot. Can I get that? Oh, it's... So even though it was annoying that happened, there was a point. I'm really annoyed that I had to that is not what I wanted to do. But what that did accomplish is that it moved that back down to there, which means that we can cross along that path. It knocked off the blockade, so we could do it. But that means that what it used to be connected up here, and I think that what was going to happen is we were going to walk out on it, and it was not going to be terribly much use because it was just going to be stuck, leading us into the middle, going nowhere. But unfortunately, I clicked let go, and I don't really feel like clicking go again and then let go again. And this is water, and this is like inverted element, so maybe drinks or weeps. The nebula. Drinks the blood you provide? Well, certainly, I mean, life blood, yeah. Is drinks right? I guess so. You gonna pull random things out? What have we got? Inscriptions. It's funny that according to this, the language from the pre-Empire period and the Empire period was the same. At least the writing was. So let's see. This is very similar to Prow, but we don't know if Prow is actually Prow. It's got some wind and some flow, so that might be ships or sailors. This is like, I think this is actually like means person, in which case it would be sailors. Sailors pray for speed. I guess it would be speed. It'd be funny if it was Racker. Oh, good. That's the giant blob. Go away. Go. Shoo. That's this giant blob up here. Oh, actually, it's this blob here. There are several. Okay, that's fine. That one's completely closed. Well, let's go and see whether or not we can cross the... You know what? I don't feel right not doing it. Oh, hold on. There's like a... I'll get it when I go down. I don't feel right not doing it the way that I wanted to do it. Because I didn't intend to have him... The only thing is that it's super, super slow. See, when it comes up, it's no longer connected to the rest of the walkways. And so the whole point was... The whole point was that if I cross, you know, Lara Croft style here...
Once, I'd found a hangar underground on Elbereth. Let's not. So basically, we have a lot of options as to where we want to go, but they're not as obvious as you might think. I have some problems with how the game kind of tricks you into accidentally doing things. I'm sure they didn't mean to, but a lot of the time it will just so happen that you'll screw up a small amount and it will cost you like 30 or 40 seconds, or skip the back half of a conversation. All right, so here's 6. I should be able to jump the gap quite easily, so I will go ahead and do that. Bonk. I plan to go exploring a lot, so do not stop work. Yeah, that seems right. Maybe not. I mean, it could be that when you are a young human, you work your body until it disintegrates, at which point you are put into a robot body. I love this little trick where they flip it upside down. That's very, very cute. You are the blood of the nebula. Really, if you say so. Excuse me. We found another toy. So this is actually a pretty good a pretty good time for us to stop. I'll come back once we've solved this little framework.